Welcome to the White Sox Recap Podcast. I am Ryan McGuffey. A lot of news, actually, here as we record this episode. Did a sit-down that you'll hear later in the show, in the program, in the podcast here with Davis Martin, starting pitcher for the White Sox, who's having an absolutely fantastic year in the top 25 in ERA in the American League. But the big news on Thursday as we record this is that there's an ownership announcement. Yes, there's an ownership announcement. The White Sox announcing a long-term ownership investment agreement between Jerry Reinsdorf and Justin Ishbia. What does it mean? When is it going to happen? Who's in control? I'm going to answer all of that, give you my thoughts here on this edition, and we'll hear from Davis Martin. But I want to remind you, because the White Sox Recap Podcast is always brought to you by our friends at the Illinois Tollway, great partners. Quick time out to talk about something serious. We've all said it before. If only I had slowed down. The Illinois Tollway's new campaign is called If Only, and it's a powerful reminder that speeding doesn't just put you at risk, it affects everyone on the road. Every crash leaves someone wishing they'd done things differently. So take the extra time, slow down, save lives. Lives, including yours, depend on it. We're very proud to have the Illinois Tollway partnering with us here on the White Sox Recap Podcast. Thoughts on the new partnership agreement between Jerry Reinsdorf and Justin Ishbia, and a long-form sit-down with Davis Martin. All of that and more on this edition of the White Sox Recap Podcast, and it starts right now. All right, so the White Sox announced on Thursday there's a long-term ownership investment agreement between Jerry Reinsdorf and Justin Ishbia. So what does it mean? Who's in charge, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm going to go over that. I'm going to read you verbatim the press release the White Sox sent to the media. They announced that Jerry Reinsdorf and Justin Ishbia have reached a long-term investment agreement that establishes a framework for Ishbia to obtain a future controlling interest in the Chicago White Sox. As part of the agreement, Ishbia will make capital infusions into the White Sox as a limited partner in 2025 and 2026 that will be used to pay down existing debt and support ongoing team operations. The agreement provides that from 2029 to 2033, Reinsdorf will have the option to sell the controlling interest to Ishbia. From 2029 to 2033, I want to put that out there. After the 34 season, Ishbia will have the option to acquire the controlling interest with no other restrictions. In the event of any such future transaction, all limited partners of the Sox would have the opportunity to sell to Ishbia at that time. In addition to Justin Ishbia, his brother Matt and father Jeff will also be significant investors. There is no assurance that any such future transaction will occur, and in no event will such a transaction take place before 2029. Right there, before 2029. I think it's important to put that out there. Until such time, the Reinsdorf family will continue to own the controlling interest in the White Sox. And Reinsdorf, chairman of the White Sox since purchasing the franchise in 1981, remains the sole day-to-day decision maker for the club. Okay, so that's out there. Those are the facts. That's what the agreement says, that until 2029, Jerry Reinsdorf will continue, or the Reinsdorf family will continue to be the principal decision maker and principal ownership and control of the Chicago White Sox. Now, there is a path, and we knew when Justin Ishbia pulled out of the bid to control the Minnesota Twins and purchase them to buy up minority shares of the Chicago White Sox, that this could be coming, that it didn't make sense to pull out of an ownership group of one team and take minority shares of another if eventually there wasn't an opportunity to purchase full control of the club. And that's what this agreement is out there. It's what the agreement has been agreed upon between both parties. And then the White Sox get the cash infusion up front from the Ishbia family now to pay off debt and put it back into the club as they try to turn this second rebuild around sooner than later. I think probably in the 27-ish season, depending on the new CBA and labor deal that needs to be worked on and will be eventually a big talking point to the sport of baseball. Quite frankly, I don't see a situation where the sport can survive a long-term lockout. So that's TBD. We're going to punt on that one. But this was a big, I don't want to say bombshell that dropped in the laps of those of us here at the ballpark on Thursday, right around noon, that Jerry Reinsdorf and Justin Ishbia announced a long-term ownership investment agreement This gives Ishbia a path to buying the Chicago White Sox, but no earlier than 2029. I think it's important to put that out there. I think it's important to understand that, and it's Reinsdorf and or the Reinsdorf family will continue to own the controlling interest in the Chicago White Sox. So that's the ownership news here on the podcast, that the agreement between Reinsdorf and Ishbia has been finalized and publicized. And it's a lot more clear now of what this means and why Justin Ishbia has been involved in this process really since the start of the 2025 season. Nothing will change before 2029, but there is a path for Justin Ishbia to be the future owner of the Chicago White Sox. And it keeps him out of the labor discussions, maybe even the ballpark. Like maybe he's has input on a ballpark situation, but certainly it kind of keeps him in the weeds of those conversations in terms of being in the spotlight. In terms of on the field, Davis Martin has been one of the guys I just continue to like to watch pitch. This guy just goes out there ever since he came up as an unheralded non-prospect, because he wasn't on a prospect list when he made his major league debut in 2022 and came up and respectfully went 3-6 with a 4.83 and kind of was like, who is this Davis Martin dude? Then he had Tommy John, and that he had to be out of the game for 14 months as he went through the mental hurdles and challenges of what that can do to a pitcher trying to earn his way back when he's really kind of doing it on his own or at facilities on his own, can't throw, rehab, etc. He's been one of the bright spots and mainstays in the White Sox rotation this year. The guy ranks in the top 25 in the American League with a 3.67 ERA as we record this. You look at his 2025 numbers. He's gone 6 innings or more in 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 starts and 4 straight. And while this team doesn't have a true ace, you're going to hear in this interview how much the staff feeds off of each other, how competitive they are, what he's learned from Ethan Katz and Brian Bannister as he has developed a new pitch and continues to be one of the guys that the White Sox rely on every fifth day. And what are his thoughts on being mentioned in trade rumors? Because nationally, his name has been mentioned in the big columns, in the John Heymans, in the Bob Nightingales, etc. Does it bother him? Does he just laugh it off? Does it motivate him? We talk about all that and more. Here's my interview with Davis Martin on the White Sox Recap Podcast. All right, Davis, there's a lot I want to discuss with you, but when you look at just kind of the way your year's going here, is we're coming up. It's crazy to think that we're almost coming up on the halfway point of the season, but I was looking at your numbers a little bit more this week, just kind of dissecting kind of behind the curtain, and
right.
You've really been the model of consistency for a young staff that actually kind of needs that. But then I say that, and you guys really are just feeding off of each other. There's no, this guy's done it a million years in a row, he's the ace. There's really no true ace. Do you guys feed off of that? Do you feed off of the fact that you go 6 1/3, the next day could be, all right, I'm going to feed off of what Davis just did, I'm trying to go 6 2/3 and be better than he was?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think from at the beginning of camp, we all talked about it. Like, we generally had a love and care for each other. Like, we wanted to see the other succeed. And I know a lot of places it's probably not like that. You know, you have one guy go out there and does really well. You know, you're kind of sitting there going like, oh, great, like, you know, blah, blah, blah. Or what we're doing is, oh, he goes out there and throws 6 1/3. Like, I got to pick my shit up.
Right.
And I got to do what he's doing. Sorry, I cussed.
No, cussing's fine.
Okay.
Cussing's great.
But yeah, so, you know, like, and I think Shane sets the tone.
Yeah.
Like, obviously what he does, it's like, instead of us going, oh man, like, we're blah, 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 like, it's like, oh, we got to go catch him. Like, we got to go catch him and what he's doing. And so it's just a good tone. Set the tone every day. I mean, some guy sets the tone, next guy follows and follows and follows. And, you know, you're going to have outings that, you know, you don't have a good outing. You know, you're going to have a struggle, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, bullpen's going to get used up a little bit. But the guy behind him's like, I'm going to pick him up. And I feel like that's kind of been the kind of unspoken model that we've had this whole year. And so it's been a really fun environment to play in.
You mentioned Shane, so I'm going to feed right off of that. Have you, I mean, what a story. He's probably going to be one of the best stories in Major League Baseball this year that no one's really discussing. Have you seen anything like, you know, a guy, a cast off for somebody else, you know, one man's is now somebody else's treasure, right? So what have you seen from Shane Smith that you've been able to pick up on and use and apply to your own repertoire?
Yeah, I mean, some of it's not tangible, hunger. I mean, I think you have an undrafted free agent who has had to fight and claw for everything he's had and he's gotten, and I think that hunger kind of feeds off into the rest of us. It's kind of like, hey, nothing's going to get handed to you in this league, and he goes out there and tries to take it from somebody every night, and that kind of rubs off on everybody. And when someone doesn't, when we have guys that don't feel that way, we have each other to hold each other accountable about it, so I think that's the biggest thing I can say is hunger. I mean, he is hungry to prove a lot of people wrong, and his stuff is incredible. His demeanor is incredible. His work ethic's incredible. He's consistent for a young guy, and it's awesome to see. It's awesome to be around.
What about for you? I mean, your story to me is just as good. I remember when you made your debut, and it was like, David Smart, and you start to kind of, where's David Smart? I was talking about this with Ethan a couple of weeks ago, and he brought up your debut. He was like, even I was like, I mean, okay, I have to figure out who this kid is, and you just came up really from the first start, and you've never really looked back, and you've kind of taken that. Is that the approach that you've used, talking about the hunger, is that you don't have to be 1-1 to go out and be effective every fifth day in the major leagues?
Absolutely. Yeah, I tell everybody I went backwards. I went debut first to prospect list to big league camp. I went straight backwards. So, there's no one way to do it. And I think once you get up here, the opportunity's here, and you got to go take advantage of that opportunity. And every fifth day you have an advantage to go out there and kind of solidify yourself more and more and more. And so, going back to the hunger quote, like, I was a 14th round pick. Nothing was ever handed to me. And when you think something's handed to you, it usually gets taken away. So, just going out there every night and proving somebody wrong, even if you got to make it up in your own head. But, just go out there and take advantage of the opportunities we're given.
Yeah, you talk about getting it taken away. I mean, the TJ, what did you learn about yourself from that whole experience and working? Do you appreciate this more?
Absolutely. I think it was funny. Josh Harrison, who just retired, we were sitting on this bench in 2022, probably the last homestand we had. He's like, man, you got to take advantage of this every day. Like, you never know when it's going to be taken from you, and blah, blah, blah. And, as a 25-year-old who's still like, this is the big leagues. Oh, this is awesome. I was just like, yeah, okay, whatever, man. Yeah. And then, boom, 14 months out of the game. You're stuck in Arizona, rehabbing every day.
And it's a lot.
It's a lot.
It just challenges the mental.
Yeah, 100%. Everything. It's the same thing over and over and over again. It's 120 degrees every day. Like, it's a lot, and if I didn't have my wife and my son, it would have been even more challenging, and it was hard on them too. So, like, all three of us are up here now, and truly every day we get to do this, we get to travel, we get to do this, even the stressful things, you're kind of like, this can be taken away at any moment. So just enjoying thoroughly every day has been a big change for me from 2022 to 2025.
A couple more minutes with Davis Martin here on the White Sox REKAP Podcast, and I want to look at the last couple of years. I know that you came back late last year, but obviously, much was made about last season and the 121 losses, and you guys are kind of on your way, maybe the ground floor, and working your way back up to be a team that is the team everyone else is chasing, rather than the other way around. You guys don't pitch like that. You look at the numbers and you see the Chicago White Sox top 10, top 12 in the major leagues in starter ERA, and you look at some of behind the metrics and chase rate and all that stuff, and you guys are there. Is that a sign that, A, that you guys are maybe better than people give credit for nationally, and B, that you're able to kind of keep your head down and not worry about, I hate to say not worry about wins and losses, because you just have to go out there, and whether you go 6 scoreless and the game ends 2-1 and you guys come up short, I mean, you went out there and put yourself and the team in position to win the game. So how is the staff and you as just an individual how are you guys able to kind of collectively be one of the better staffs in the game while, coming up short most of the time here the last 2 seasons?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're just competition junkies, to be honest. I mean, I think every single one of us want to go out there and beat the guy in front of us over and over and over again. And, you're going to face 25, 26 guys. Your goal is to win 80, 90% of those matchups, maybe more. And, you're going to get beat one night where you have, 4 or 5 guys that beat you. But at the end of the day, it's just the love of the competition. It's the love to beat the person in front of you. And that translates into here, when we do our free throw games and our little start. Yeah, anyways. Our competition is everywhere. And I think all the starters, we love to compete in a facet of different, multiple facets. But I think that's the easiest way to kind of just keep your head down, keep the blinders on, is just competing. Like, you try to beat the guy in front of you. Once you do that, you go to the next guy, beat that guy, go to the next guy, beat that guy. And then you look up and, you know, maybe it's the 5th inning, maybe it's the 7th inning. You don't know. So
what does Ethan, what does Bannister, the pitching unit here, what have those guys meant to you as a major league pitcher?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, Banny and Katz gave me the kick change, and I think that pitch alone probably prolonged my professional career by a few years, you know, and so that means the world to me. And, you know, with Ethan, I think he does a great job of game planning in between innings. That's where I think he shines, and I don't think he gets a lot of credit for, is the conversations we have on the bench on, hey, what we're seeing, what they're doing, how does it look out there, and then him and I and the catcher can have a good conversation, go out there with a better game plan the next half inning. So, you know, you can look at the data, you can look at the scouting reports, but, you know, you got to read and react to what's actually happening in real life. So that's been huge for my development, and from the get-go, he's been really good at that in 2022, and it's just gotten better as I've matured. So, yeah, they mean the world. They're incredible coaches, and they've helped us out a ton.
I've read your name in trade rumors, which is, you know, you kind of go, oh, look at where the team is, look at the young staff they're assembling, and then you look at control. This is probably the most under control, team control staff in Major League Baseball. A lot of the answers to these questions are the same. Like, I just go out and control what I can control and whatever. But seeing your name in trade rumors, is that even something that remotely lights a fire or even, you know, ignites you whatsoever?
Yeah, I mean, go back to just head down, compete with the guy in front of you, and, you know, I think there's something to be said too. You know, like you said, you can control what you control. I'm going to go out there and compete, and whatever happens, happens. But there's something to be said. I think this group is really special, and something that I would want to be a part of for a long time. So, yeah.
One guy in this lineup, in your lineup, that you would hate to face. Is there a guy in the lineup you'd hate to face? Because you're a competitor.
I know.
You don't want to give him that. You don't want to give him that nugget.
No, I mean, me and Benny have talked a lot, and I've actually asked Benny about a lot of things because, you know, I added the cutter, I added the changeup. My splits to lefties in 22 were really bad, and so he was a guy that kind of approached like, hey, you're a really solid professional hitter. You've been in this game for a very long time. You've had success in this game. And so he gives me some tidbits, but he doesn't give me them all. Because he's like, I might face you one day. And I said, well, you are my first big league punch out. So I got him twice. He hates it. But no,
Does he remember that?
He does. He claims he doesn't. But no, I mean, I think Benny's one that he has a game plan, he has an approach, and he usually doesn't go away from that approach. So you have to go beat him in his zones, and any professional hitter that does that to you, like, there's some risk reward there. So you're going to win some, you're going to lose some. But yeah, I'd say Benny.
Who's the person you've learned the most from in the major leagues since you've been a major leaguer? Or is there one piece of advice that you've received that you're like, yeah, that still resonates?
You know, I think there's so many tidbits. You know, that 2022 team had an incredible staff. You know, you had Lance Lynn, you can learn a lot from him. Dylan Cease, you can learn a lot from him. You know, I learned from Kopech, from Giolito, from Hendricks. You know, I think there really isn't something that stands out that says like, oh, this is stuck with me. It's just a culmination, a melting pot of a ton of guys in my ear, and it's been an incredible support staff. You know, with the coaches, with the players, and I think that's anybody. You know, that's how you become a successful big leaguer, is you have guys around you that care about you and actually care about your career, and I've been lucky enough to have a lot of those guys with the White Sox.
You were on the tail end of that group, as you mentioned, and knowing that there was something like right there in front. I mean, there was a division champion team in 21 right before that you were in the organization, obviously. Does that, knowing how close it was and seeing how quickly it faded, is that something that you can, almost kind of like an injury?
Yeah.
To see everyone's trying to pull from the same string to get to the same place, but it also could lead to disaster overnight.
Right.
Is that something that when you look around the ballpark, can you envision 40,000 here going nuts for your David Smart playoff start?
Yeah. No, I think so. I mean, like I said, we have a special group, especially the starting pitchers. I think we have a good core in general. We have a lot of guys in the minor leagues that are very hungry to win, and you know, I think that kind of trickles all the way up. And yeah, I mean, I'd love to be a part of this team where we have 40,000 people, and it's got a little energy in here. So yeah, no, it's something I really want. And you know, that 2022 chase when it was us in Cleveland, and Cleveland kind of pulled away at the end. You know, it should hurt. So, but leading up to that point where every game mattered. Every game was high intensity. Every game was a must win. That's what you play the game for. So it's something that I'd love to see again here.
Last two. There's fans don't necessarily want to hear, oh, it's a great clubhouse. But I was in last year's clubhouse a lot. I've been in this clubhouse. Last year's clubhouse for a team that won 41 games was a much better group of people, much better team than some of the teams that won here. And I don't want to just call out the 20s. I'll go back into the early teens and even 05 to 10. Why does and what makes like a great clubhouse when you're coming to work every day for 8 months? You look at the standings and you're up the track, but still coming through those doors every day, you're jacked and you love it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a younger group, and it's a bunch of groups of guys that are still trying to solidify themselves in the big leagues for the most part, and and go back to the original conversation of guys that actually care about each other, care about each other's success, care about each other. If some guy doesn't get the hit, the guy behind him's going to get it. And I think this year's team especially, you see the grittiness of it. You see, last night's a perfect example. We dropped 4 in the first inning. Bullpen picks up Schuster. Guys put together some great ABs, and we're in the game, and baseball happens at the very end of the game, so but yeah, just genuinely caring about each other and the love to compete kind of trickles in all the way through. And we do have some really good veterans that have been around that have seen some stuff that they like and seen the stuff that they don't like, and I think they've done a really good job of kind of implementing those things that are healthy for a clubhouse and not toxic, so it's been good.
And non-baseball question, I'm a dad, you're a dad, Father's Day's coming up. What does that day mean to you now, as you've had a lot more perspective after you become a dad, after you've gone through injury, come back to Major League Baseball? What does this day mean to you now?
Oh, it means the world, man. I think it's, I joke with good outing, bad outing. He has a ball in his hand, and he's like, Dad, throw this ball. I don't care what you just did. Like, I want you to throw it. I don't care if you gave up 10 or if you just went 9 scoreless. And so it's a phenomenal perspective because, I was lucky enough to train with a guy named Scott Bankhead, first-round pick. Played from 1985 to 1995. He's a 10-year big leaguer. And he said, I've been running this facility for 25 years. He's like, this game's going to be over once. Like, it's going to be over. No matter how long you want to play, you're going to live more life on the back end of your career. And so just to have him is a constant reminder of that, of, enjoy what we do up here, push, do everything you can to be successful. But at the end of the day, I'm a father to him and a husband to my wife. And it's been a great work-life balance for sure.
Davis Martin, starting pitcher for the White Sox, top 20 in the American League and ERA. Just go out and keep doing you, man. You're fun to watch. You're a good dude to talk to. And, I know fans, certainly Southside fans, gravitate towards the guy that's not in the who did it backwards. I'll end it the way we started. Who did it backwards. Appreciate you being here.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
Really good stuff there from Davis Martin. Appreciate the candid and the openness just about his entire career, his path. I like that he said he did it backwards, where he went to debut to prospect list back to the minors, kind of flip the reversal of how a lot of these prospects now do it, where they're on the prospect, they get drafted, they're on the prospect list, and then they come up and everyone's expecting good things. Davis Martin did it in reverse, and love to see the success of a guy like him, because those are the guys that are easy to root for on and off the field. They're just really good dudes. So I appreciate his time. Quick time out to talk about something serious. We've all said it before. If only I had slowed down. The Illinois Tollway's new campaign is called If Only, and it's a powerful reminder that speeding doesn't just put you at risk. It affects everyone on the road. Every crash leaves someone wishing they'd done things differently. So take the extra time, slow down, save lives. Lives, including yours, depend on it. Beautiful doing the White Sox Recap Podcast here at the rate. So there's all the news on the new partnership between Jerry Reinsdorf and Justin Ishbia, and a nice long interview with White Sox starter Davis Martin. Appreciate you watching this edition of the White Sox Recap Podcast. You can get it anywhere you listen, download, or subscribe to podcasts on audio form. Stay tuned for this and more breaking news. We'll have it for you always on the White Sox Recap Podcast and all the recap content that we do. Appreciate you watching and listening. We'll see you next time on the White Sox Recap Podcast. I'm Ryan McGuffey.